This 100-kilometer wide circle goes through many significant ancient sites across the globe. In Peru, it passes through the Paracas Groin, the Nazca Tracts, Ollantaytambo, Machu Picchu, Cusco, Sacsayhuaman, and the Paratoari Pyramids. In Africa, it crosses Mali and the mysterious Dogon lands, where they knew the stars Sirius B and C before any astronomers. Algeria and the Tassili Nijar, with its painted Martian god. In Egypt, it goes through the Siwa Oasis and its Zeus Ammon temple, and through the Great Pyramid at Giza. Next, it crosses Petra, Ur, where Abraham was born, Persepolis in Iran, Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan, where the unreadable writing was found that is so close to the writing on Easter Island. Then it crosses sites that have always been known as the homes of the gods, Khajuraho in India, Phayé in Burma, Sukhothai in Thailand, Angkor Wat and Praihar in Cambodia. And it ends with the most isolated and mysterious place on Earth, Easter Island.
Easter Island, the most isolated and mysterious place on Earth. Well, 1 week before, I went to discuss the ideas of this presentation with Catherine. It was very recently. I was in Doha in Qatar. I was on a boat, and because there was nothing else to do, I decided to pick up a local newspaper that was standing there. And I have to tell you, I never read the papers, ever. I don't even watch TV. And here's what I see in the paper. An article on Easter Island whose title is about, word for word, the statement made in the video that was part of the presentation. جزيرة القيامة الأكثر غرابة وعزلة في العالم. Easter Island, the most mysterious and isolated place on Earth. What the hell? Now, I get off the boat, and I'm not kidding you. I have an appointment at Qatar Foundation right after the boat ride. I get there, and there is only one thing standing on the reception desk. This. What is the Canadian Embassy doing in that Qatar Foundation building? Don't ask me. I have no answer. So let's go back to the concept of this line. So if you look at this map, all those lines, show the alignments of major ancient sites. They all circle the Earth and have the same size of the equator, which is a pretty amazing coincidence again. It's as if, there were some sort of like spiritual energy lines connecting with humanity, right? So the line that you saw in the video is here in black. It is not exhaustive and is only showing some of the points that intersect with all the lines. There are so many mathematical coincidences between all of them. For example, the distance between Easter Island and Giza, where the Great Pyramid is equal to exactly 10,000 times the golden ratio. Actually, within the dimension of the Great Pyramid of Giza, you will find the golden ratio everywhere. And it wasn't even supposed to be known at the time, they were supposed to be like very, very, very basic, people doing this work. Not only that, but you also find pi, which was also not supposed to be known, and even the speed of light. So, there are so many other things, like the pyramids, for example, it is precisely aligned with magnetic north, which is something that's impossible to do without precise technology that we have today. The pyramid also has a very accurate position in relation to the stars, constellations, and the zodiac, which has a very interesting connection to astrology that unfortunately I won't have the time to discuss now. But there's another connection to astrology, and that's actually quite fascinating. Like, we all think that the pyramid has 4 sides, right? But in reality, it has 8. Which is much more difficult to accomplish. It's very subtle, right? The level of precision now becomes astounding when you realize that you can only see the 8 sides at a specific time of the year, the equinoxes. And that, again, as I was saying, is a very powerful astrological symbol. I don't have time to go into detail for this, but if you do some research, you will understand what I mean. So you can see it here on the picture. The reason why it happens only at the equinox is because at that time, the relative position of the Earth is such that when light comes, it hits the pyramid at a very, very fine angle that make the 8 sides appear only at that time. I mean, the level of precision that you would need for something like this to show at a specific time is unbelievable. And if you just changed the dimension of the pyramids by just a few centimeters, everything would be off. I'm talking about all the other dimensions of pi and golden ratio and everything. Like it's astounding. It's crazy. And what makes it even more complex is that the sizes of the stones are different from one another in order to make the structure earthquake-proof and virtually everlasting. The Pyramid of Giza is actually the only of the 7 wonders in the world that is still standing. So all of this is extremely precise. You know, you would have to essentially design block by block. You know, messing up the design by just a few centimeters for every block would ruin everything. So every single stone was very precisely laid down in a way that even modern engineers acknowledge they probably wouldn't be able to do. So imagine applying this level of precision to 2.3 million stones, the average weight of which is in the thousands of kilograms for each stone, and pile them up 140 meters high, which is the height of the pyramid, and that's the highest building in the world until the 14th century. And at school, they teach us that this was done with prehistoric tools, barely any knowledge, over a period of 10 to 20 years, and that also includes the time it took to actually carve out all these 2.3 million stones and transport them, sometimes over several hundred kilometers, all the way to Giza. Like this. And we just accept that at face value, the same way that our ancestors accepted at face value that the earth was flat. But in my opinion, there's something more to it. Not to mention the fact that the pyramids of Peru, which are extremely similar to that of Giza, and just as sophisticated, are aligned on that same circle, which happens to be exactly the size of the equator. I mean, how many more coincidences do you want before starting to look at things from a different perspective? So we could spend hours really talking about all these coincidences, and I'll just add one that I really like. Look, here you have Easter Island, and here you have Mohenjo-Daro. Mohenjo-Daro is located at the exact antipode of Easter Island. It is precisely 180 degrees away from Easter Island, not only from east to west, but also from north to south. In other words, it is the farthest possible point on Earth from Easter Island. There's no two, there's one, it's there. Farthest possible. And yet, the writings found in these two completely unconnected places are extremely similar. Here's an illustration, look it up. Scientists are speechless, they cannot explain that. And I personally see it as a wonderful metaphor. No matter how far we are from each other on the physical level, at a spiritual level, we all speak the same language. And also, since we're talking about Mecca, you can notice that it's also aligned with Easter Island and Mohenjo-Daro. So in my opinion, the Quran makes very clear that the choice of Mecca as a religious center was for cultural reasons. But that in the end, any other point would have been just as valid. Jerusalem actually was also used, at the beginning of Islam, and as a qibla, as they say, as the direction towards which Muslims need to orient themselves to pray. And the Quran actually says why. It was a test to determine the people who worshipped Mecca out of habit and imitation of society from the people who had the courage to give up their superstitions and follow the true essence of spirituality, which is everywhere. And the Quran confirms it again. What matters is not that you turn your head towards the east or towards the west. What matters is what is in your heart. Do you believe in Tawheed, this unicity of humanity with God and the universe? Or do you prefer to blindly follow the superstitions of society, mindlessly doing the same things you found your fathers doing without questioning yourself and without thinking rationally? We follow our ancestors even if they're completely irrational. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ? The Quran keeps inviting people to think rationally, but we don't. Instead, we keep worshipping ourselves through our little societies. So back in pre-Islamic society, there were like 360 idols, and today we worship money or anything else. We worship ourselves through our environment. And so so these idols that were from pre-Islamic society were really metaphors for the society that they represented, like sociology has very well explained, especially Emile Durkheim. And systematically, when you look at new religions, the prophets that came systematically fought those idols to, encourage people to look at, a higher truth, right? That's the point of religion. And as a result, we usually, because we're conditioned that way, we don't like to hear a different story, and that's also the reason why all these prophets were bitterly fought. Because we prefer to stay with our own little beliefs and our own little ego, right? We fear and we fight the people who are different because we perceive them as threats to our quote-unquote identity and sense of ego. Which is why the true essence of all religions is about fighting that ego. It's about giving unconditional love to everyone irrespective of gender, race, and ideology, including your enemies. Actually, your only enemy is your egoistic selfishness, which is artificially separating you from the rest of the universe and make you live in fear instead of love. And that leads me to assumption number 5. Religion is about irrational fear. So if you look at the most advanced theories of physics today, they claim that everything in the universe is made of one single component, a tiny string of energy. All there is in the universe is this, energy, everywhere. And according to the esoteric interpretation of most religion, the spiritual energy that exists around the earth, as we saw with these lines, is interconnected with the life energy that flows inside of us. It has taken different names in different civilizations, but it is the same concept. Chi, prana, and kundalini are some of the most well-known names for the same energy, which is generally represented by a snake or a serpent. In Indian tradition, the serpent is a female sexual energy rising from the lower physical chakras up to the higher spiritual chakras. The European equivalent is in the caduceus, which is the symbol of the Greek god Hermes. In Greek mythology, Hermes is the messenger between humanity and the gods, connecting humans to the divine. The quality of this energy that flows inside of us and the way it flows inside our body is an indication of how healthy we are. And that's the central concept in traditional Chinese medicine, which is very effective for people who believe in it. And coincidentally, in the West, Hermes' symbol of the snakes and this flow of energy is still today the symbol of health. It is also the symbol of Hermeticism. Hermetics claim that all religions have the same source and that the study of their secrets and esoteric knowledge leads to the same unique truth of enlightenment and communion with God. One of the most famous Hermetic principles says, as above, so below. In other words, what exists in the microcosm of your soul is the reflection of the macrocosm of the universe, and vice versa. Which is why the energy lines of the human being, on that picture here with the acupuncture points, resembles the energy lines of the earth with its ancient monuments that we saw previously. And many other connections can be established. For example, one day I spoke with a Kung Fu teacher from Greece, actually, and he taught me that the points where the snakes intersect on Hermes' caduceus actually represent the 7 chakras of Hinduism and Buddhism, as you can see on that picture. So you see the heart chakra in the middle in green represents love and connects feminine matter or earth to masculine spirit or heaven. When the feminine sexual energy from the bottom merges with the masculine spiritual energy at the top, the human being achieves divine enlightenment. The merging of the opposites yields perfection. Therefore, it makes sense that this energy is sexual in nature. In Hindu and Buddhist tradition, the second chakra, in orange here, is responsible for sexuality, physical power, and creativity. And that also makes sense because sex is the source of creation and the origin of life. So all these things are very much interconnected. And in Taoist tradition, where you can see the yin-yang symbol is a major element, this second chakra is called Tantien. It has the same characteristics and it is located exactly at the same spot. And Shaolin monks practice meditation around this point, including with the practice of sex, to increase their power. So that Kung Fu teacher that I spoke to told me that his master, for example, could have sex for several hours in a row without ejaculating. Because ejaculation is perceived, from this perspective, to be a big waste of energy. What these people do is that instead of evacuating the sexual energy with ejaculation, they recycle it throughout their body and make it work in order to increase their power. And the result is quite impressive.
It's called Qigong. Some know it as Qi, or inner energy. But is it martial arts myth or fighting fact? Science will attempt to reveal the truth. The scientists are skeptical.
Right there where it's all soft tissue.
Yeah.
This is no trick. This was the actual spear that was first tested on a 10-pound watermelon. And this is the potentially lethal hidden anatomy of the iron shirt. Xiaojun Wang will place the tip of the spear at his throat just above the supraclavicular notch. This is the area doctors cut into to perform a tracheostomy. There are no strong muscles here to protect the throat, and the cartilage of the windpipe is easily cut between the tracheal rings. Practitioners believe that qi is stored in the dantian, an area about an inch below the abdomen. They also believe that they can direct this energy source to any point on the body to protect it from harm. In this demonstration, the qi is summoned to protect Xiaojun Wang's windpipe when the spear is placed at his throat. Even with the added pressure of breaking the wooden baton over his back, the Shaolin warrior remains undamaged. Even having the most advanced tools, there's currently no way to measure qi. But whatever Shaolin warrior Wang's technique, there's no denying its results. For now, the hidden strength of this secret defense will remain a mystery.
Once again, the data confirms that Hu is pushing with a pressure of up to 200 pounds per square inch.
It's difficult to ascertain how an individual goes about attempting this without resulting in some injury.
So it's just a mystery.
It's a mystery to me, certainly.